How many private things can a wife tell her ex before you call it betrayal? One failed presentation? One childhood fear? The exact sentence her husband asked her never to repeat? I told myself none of it counted because my ex was our old friend, and old friends had known us before marriage made every conversation dangerous. At my 40th birthday, my husband took one quiet half step back each time that old friend made the room laugh. I was certain every inch of space he surrendered proved which man was strong enough to own the night. My name is Sabine Reed. I was 40 and I worked as a senior photo editor for a regional travel magazine. My job was to choose which image became the memory. A photographer might return with 900 frames from one town, but our readers saw 12. I removed the dull sky, the closed shop, and the face that weakened the promise of escape. I never called that dishonesty. It was selection. Joel and I had been together for 9 years and married for 6. He was a structural engineer, the kind of man who entered a beautiful building and looked first at the load-bearing walls. He knew where pressure collected. He also believed most things could survive if people stopped adding weight. That belief made him good at his job and difficult inside a marriage. Joel did not shout. He did not interrupt. When someone stepped too close or turned a private problem into a public scene, he moved back half a pace and waited for the noise to burn itself out. In our first years, that calm felt like shelter. Later, it felt like leaving me alone in the center of every difficult room. We still had good things. On the first Sunday after every trip, Joel chose one photograph I had almost deleted. It was never the perfect view. He picked the picture with my hair in my face, my shoe untied, or my mouth open before a laugh. He printed it at the pharmacy and wrote the date on the back. By our 6th anniversary, a plain album held 73 versions of me that I would never have selected for print. Joel said those were the pictures where I looked present instead of arranged. I loved him for seeing me that way. I also resented that he believed being quietly seen should be enough. Leandro Costa belonged to the louder part of my life. We dated from 22 to 26, when neither of us knew how to enter a room without making sure it noticed. He worked in beverage sales now, which suited him. He remembered names, filled empty glasses, and made strangers believe they had been invited for a reason. After our breakup, Leandro remained part of the same old group. He dated other women. I married Joel. Tara Wynne kept inviting both of us to dinners because she said adults should not force friends to choose sides. So nobody chose. That mattered more to me than I admitted. At 16, I had transferred into a school where friendships were already sealed. Leandro was the first person who pulled a chair into his circle and told the others to make room. Through him, I became funny Sabine, sharp Sabine, the girl people called before a party. Even years later, part of me believed my place in that group had his name under it. Joel never liked that explanation. He said a person who welcomed me at 16 did not own access to me at 40. I heard jealousy because jealousy was easier to answer than fear. The rented lake house was my idea. 6 bedrooms, a glass sunroom, and a long lawn ending at a wooden dock. I invited 14 people for the weekend and planned one large party on Saturday night. Joel handled the caterer, the heating problem, and the owner who claimed the broken dishwasher had been working before we arrived. I handled the photographs. In the sunroom, I stretched wire between 2 wooden posts and clipped up pictures from every decade. My parents, college, work trips, Joel in a hard hat beside a bridge, Tara dancing at her wedding, Leandro and me at 24, sunburned and laughing on the roof of a car. Joel carried in another box and stopped when he saw that photograph. He moved half a step away from the wall. Then he asked whether Leandro had confirmed. I said our old friend would arrive Saturday afternoon. Joel asked again if I would consider telling him the weekend was for family and current friends. I said Leandro was a current friend. The relationship had ended 14 years earlier, and a confident husband should not need history erased to feel secure. Joel looked at the roof photograph once more. He asked whether confidence meant never being allowed to name discomfort. That made the room heavier than it needed to be. I told him this was my birthday, not another meeting about his boundaries. He stepped back, picked up the empty box, and carried it to the hall. 2 months before the party, Joel had applied to lead his engineering division. He knew every project in the department, but the final interview included a presentation to 7 partners. Halfway through a question about a delayed hospital project, he stopped speaking. The pause lasted 12 seconds. Someone else received the promotion. That night, Joel sat on the edge of our bed with his hands together. He told me his father used to force him to answer questions at dinner before he was ready. If Joel paused, his father counted slowly and said the same sentence at 5. "Count to 5, Joel. Maybe a better man will answer." He had not repeated that sentence since his father died. He asked me never to use it in an argument and never to tell anyone who knew him. I put my arms around him. I promised. The following afternoon, Leandro sent a message asking why I had left the group chat early. I answered with a voice note from my parked car. I said Joel had lost a promotion and spent the night treating one bad presentation like a childhood funeral. The voice note ran 11 minutes. I included the sentence Joel had asked me to keep inside our marriage, but I did not type it or post it where anyone else could see. Repeating a confidence to one old friend still felt different from exposing it to a room. The lake house owner brought 2 spare heaters that evening. Joel carried one into the sunroom and left the other beside a navy travel bag in the back of his car. I assumed the bag held clothes for the weekend. The bag looked like one more practical detail Joel had handled, so I stopped thinking about it. Leandro and I had started talking more after his relationship with a woman named Celia ended. He called our messages old friend maintenance. I called them debriefs. The name made them sound harmless. At first, the conversations were short. A photograph from a restaurant we used to visit. A song from a college playlist. A joke about Tara's husband buying shoes designed for a younger man. Then, Leandro began asking what marriage to a quiet person was actually like. I told him Joel made silence feel like a verdict. If I became angry, he waited. If I cried, he brought water and asked what action would help. If I wanted him to defend us in front of friends, he suggested we discuss the problem at home. Leandro said Joel treated marriage like a building inspection. I laughed in my car for almost a minute. 1 debrief became 4. 4 became messages after every difficult evening. I told Leandro about the promotion, Joel's fear of public mistakes, and the way his shoulders tightened when louder men interrupted him. I described the private conversations as context, not ammunition. That was how I kept the room easy inside my own head. Leandro knew how to reward disclosure. If I complained that Joel had answered a feeling with a solution, he said I deserved a man who could stay awake inside a conversation. If I described another quiet dinner, he sent a photograph from some crowded bar and reminded me that I used to be the person strangers wanted beside them. The messages were never explicit. He did not ask for photographs of my body, and I did not offer them. That technical innocence became important to me. I could archive his thread before bed, turn off the preview, and still tell myself there was nothing a husband had the right to question. One night, Joel found me smiling at my phone beneath the bathroom light. He asked who had written so late. I said Tara had remembered an old college story. The lie arrived without preparation. I treated its ease as proof that nothing serious was happening. Joel stood in the doorway and took his half-step back. He did not ask to inspect the phone. He only said I had begun protecting ordinary messages as if they were evidence. I accused him of making privacy suspicious. Then I deleted Leandro's last preview from the lock screen, not the conversation itself. That distinction allowed me to sleep. The attention changed how I saw Joel. His careful questions became dull. His early nights became old age. When Leandro remembered a green dress from 17 years earlier, I compared that memory with Joel forgetting which week my magazine closed its winter issue. I did not compare the hundreds of ordinary details Joel remembered. Ordinary details did not make me feel 24. Joel noticed Leandro knew too much before I did. At Tara's summer barbecue, Leandro joked that engineers needed 5 business days to produce one human emotion. Joel had never told him about the presentation, but he looked at me instead of Leandro. One glance, one question waiting inside it. I told him the joke was obvious because engineers were careful. He moved half a pace away from the grill and asked whether I discussed our arguments with Leandro. I said women were allowed to talk to friends. Then I reminded him that Leandro had known me longer than he had. Joel answered that length of acquaintance did not create a right to private parts of our marriage. I accused him of trying to isolate me. That ended the conversation because he went quiet, exactly as I expected. When the birthday invitations went out, Joel asked me one final time not to include Leandro. He did not demand. He did not threaten. He said the friendship had started taking things from our marriage that never returned. I asked him to name one thing. He said safety. The word annoyed me. Nothing physical had happened. Leandro had never kissed me since the breakup. We had not met alone at a hotel or hidden inside an apartment. Messages could be deleted, muted, or misunderstood, but they did not touch skin. I told Joel he was making a friendship sound dirty because he could not compete with someone more social. He took his familiar half-step back. His face changed, but his voice did not. He asked whether a husband should have to compete with an ex for information about his own marriage. I said there would be no competition if he stopped acting defeated. Tara supported the invitation when I called her. She said excluding Leandro would split the old group and make the whole weekend tense before it began. Tara hated choosing sides because every choice created somebody who might stop inviting her. She offered to watch his drinking. That promise allowed everyone to proceed without solving anything. Tara had reasons for wanting the old circle intact. Leandro had introduced her to the man she later married. I had stayed with her through the divorce. Kellen found his first sales job through one of Leandro's contacts. Every friendship carried another friendship inside it, and none of us wanted to pull the wrong thread. Still, Tara asked whether I had been talking to Leandro more than usual. She said he had begun referring to my marriage as if he received weekly reports. I told her Joel made people curious because he never explained himself. Tara answered that silence did not give the rest of us permission to write his explanation for him. I heard the warning. I also heard how much easier the weekend would be if I ignored it. 3 nights before the party, Leandro asked whether Joel was still sensitive about the promotion. I said he had returned to normal, which meant he worked late and pretended the rejection had become useful experience. Leandro sent a laughing reaction. Then he asked what happened if anyone mentioned the presentation. I wrote that Joel would go silent, pull back, and wait for me to rescue him. Leandro asked whether I planned to. My answer was one sentence. I said perhaps it was time to see whether he could rescue himself. The message did not tell Leandro to humiliate my husband. It only left the door open and described what was behind it. On Saturday morning, Joel woke before everyone and repaired the loose step leading to the dock. He collected breakfast from town, moved the outdoor heaters, and found an extension cord for the music. By noon, the house worked because he had touched every problem before the guests noticed it. I spent the same hours adjusting the photo wall. At 2, Tara arrived with flowers and 2 bottles of sparkling wine. She found Joel carrying ice through the side entrance and called him the most useful birthday husband in the state. I agreed. Useful was a compliment if nobody listened too closely. Joel set down the ice and moved half a step away from us. Tara saw it. Her smile tightened. Then she asked where the cake should go. Leandro arrived at 4 in a cream-colored coat with a long black case under one arm. He hugged Tara, kissed my cheek, and offered Joel one hand as if they were meeting for the first time. Joel shook it. Leandro held on a beat too long. The half-step came again. I read the movement as surrender and felt the whole weekend become lighter. The black case held a restored instant camera, the same model Leandro and I had used on a college road trip. He had found it online, replaced the leather, and added 3 packs of film. A small metal plate on the bottom carried the date of my 40th birthday. He said nobody else would have remembered which camera I loved. Several guests made the soft sound people make when a gift has found the exact emotional target. I hugged him again. This time, I held on long enough for Tara to look at Joel. Joel had made the photo wall. He had also spent 2 evenings scanning damaged pictures from my mother's albums so they could be printed without cracks. His gift was already hanging around us, doing its work without a speech. I thanked Leandro louder. Joel had included a photograph I had never seen. My mother stood beside me after my first magazine interview, holding my coat while I checked my makeup in a dark window. Joel found the negative in a paper envelope and paid a specialist to restore it. My mother had been dead 3 years. For several seconds, I could not speak. Then, Leandro clicked the instant camera beside my ear. The new photograph slid out while everyone turned toward the sound. He said old memories were valuable, but a birthday needed proof that the interesting years had not ended. The room followed him because he offered movement after sadness. I followed too. Joel watched me place the restored picture of my mother near the bottom of the wall. Leandro's first instant photograph went at eye level. Half a step separated Joel from the wire. I decided he was offended because his gift had not controlled the moment. The first instant picture showed him beside me beneath the birthday banner. He placed one hand at my shoulder and leaned close. Joel stood near the drinks table holding a tray of empty glasses. Leandro said the camera still knew which man belonged in the photograph. 6 people laughed. Tara did not. Joel carried the tray into the kitchen. I told the group he had never understood posing. At dinner, Leandro sat on my right. Joel took the seat on my left because I had made the place cards, but he spent most of the meal getting up. More bread. A missing fork. The vegetarian plate for Tara. Every trip gave Leandro another chance to call him my assistant. The first 2 jokes were easy enough to survive. Leandro asked whether Joel billed hourly for birthday service. He wondered if structural engineers inspected cake before allowing candles near it. I laughed because refusing would have made the table stiff. Keeping the mood light was my responsibility. That was the version I preferred. When Leandro called Joel my security guard, Joel asked him to use his name. Leandro lifted both hands and said he meant no harm. Then he used Joel's name with exaggerated care, which received a larger laugh than the original joke. Joel looked at me. I told him not to make a small joke carry more weight than it could hold. He moved his chair half a step back from the table. Leandro filled his wine glass again. After dinner, music moved everyone into the sunroom. The photo wall shone under small yellow lights. Leandro took instant portraits and wrote comments on the white borders. Tara dancing. Kellen pretending to drink from the flower vase. Me holding the restored camera beneath my chin. Joel appeared only at the edge of 2 pictures. Leandro turned the white borders into a game. Everyone had to write 1 sentence beneath somebody else's picture. The first captions were harmless. Tara called Kellen professionally overdressed. Rosa wrote that I was 40 with the evidence removed. Even Joel added a line beneath Miriam's photograph about her arriving early for the first time in 10 years. His joke received a real laugh. Leandro looked surprised, then moved the camera toward him and asked for another. Joel declined. He said 1 joke was enough and returned the pen. Leandro wrote limited range beneath Joel's blurred photograph. I added needs, detailed instructions. The 2 captions sat together on the white border. Joel read them, looked at me, and asked whether I wanted that picture on my birthday wall. I said removing it would make the joke look serious. Rosa unclipped the photograph anyway and placed it face down on a side table. She said a person did not have to display every image just because a camera produced it. I called her protective. Leandro called her humorless. The game continued, but Rosa stopped writing. I began counting laughter without meaning to. 7 people laughed when Leandro said Joel dressed like a man waiting to apologize. 5 laughed when he asked whether my husband scheduled intimacy on an engineering calendar. 3 laughed when he said I had traded excitement for home maintenance. 3 was enough to keep going. Joel asked if he could speak to me on the porch. The lake air was cold, and music pressed through the glass behind us. He said Leandro had arrived ready to target him. He asked what I had shared since Tara's barbecue. I told him nothing that a confident man should fear. He asked whether Leandro knew about the interview. The direct question opened a narrow space. I could have admitted the debriefs. I could have asked Leandro to leave before the wine removed whatever restraint he still had. Instead, I said Joel was using my birthday to conduct an investigation. His jaw tightened. He told me the issue was not one joke. Leandro spoke as if he had been standing inside our bedroom after the promotion. I said people could guess when a man carried disappointment like a wet coat. Joel stepped back from me, half a pace. His hands stayed at his sides. He asked me to set one boundary in front of the group. Nothing dramatic. I only needed to tell Leandro that our private life was not material. That request sounded simple until I pictured the room. Our old friend would smile. Everyone would glance between the ex and the husband. My 40th birthday would become a seminar about Joel's feelings. I told him I would handle the mood in my own way. Inside, Leandro raised the camera and caught us returning through the glass door. The picture showed Joel behind me, slightly blurred. Leandro wrote escort service beneath it. I laughed before Joel could ask me not to. By 9, the sparkling wine was gone and Leandro had switched to bourbon. Tara removed his glass twice. He found another one both times. His jokes stopped waiting for an opening. He followed Joel toward the kitchen and returned wearing the grey serving apron Joel had left on a chair. Leandro tied it badly around his cream trousers and announced that he had been promoted to husband for 5 minutes. I told him the role required carrying trays and apologizing before anyone explained the problem. Kellen looked down at his drink. Miriam asked Leandro to take the apron off. He said she should relax because Joel clearly did not mind sharing the uniform. Then he handed Joel an empty tray and ordered him toward the sunroom with a little turn of his wrist. Joel did not take the tray. He removed the apron from Leandro, folded it over his forearm, and left it beside the sink. Leandro stepped closer until bourbon touched his breath. Joel moved back half a pace. That was when Leandro asked why a man with such broad shoulders occupied so little space. The line pleased him. He repeated it for the guests who had not heard, then said quiet men might be saving their strength for crying in parked cars after failed interviews. The room altered around that sentence. Tara lowered the camera. Kellen looked toward me. Joel did not look at Leandro at all. He asked me whether I had told him about the parking garage. After the promotion meeting, Joel had sat in his car for 40 minutes before driving home. That detail had never appeared in the group chat. He had told only me. I said I might have mentioned that he took the news hard. Friends discuss their marriages. Adults survive being discussed. Joel asked if I had described him crying. I answered that tears were not shameful unless he made them shameful. Leandro laughed and said Joel should thank me for making him sound human. That received one laugh. Mine. Joel moved half a step away from the drinks table. Tara whispered my name, but I turned toward the birthday cake before she could add anything. The candles gave me a reason to take control again. 40 small flames would have been ridiculous, so the bakery had used 4 tall ones. Everyone gathered. Joel lit them because the matches were beside his hand. Leandro began singing too loudly and changed the final line to include his own name. I leaned into him for the instant photograph while the candles burned between us. Joel stood on the other side of the cake. When I blew out the flames, Leandro asked whether I had wished for a husband with a pulse. I said Joel followed instructions well, so there was still time to teach him. The laugh came back. 4 people, then 2. Joel set the matchbox down. He said I had asked him once why he stopped speaking in front of my friends. This was the reason. I told him silence was a choice, not something Leandro had done to him. That accusation was true enough to cut. Joel had withdrawn from hard rooms for years and left me to interpret what his quiet meant. He expected me to sense the exact moment patience became pain. He called that dignity. Sometimes it was fear with better posture. He did not deny it. For 1 second, being right gave me a clean way out. I could have taken Joel's hand, asked Leandro to leave, and still kept the truthful part of my complaint. Leandro ruined the opening by asking if the birthday assistant needed 5 seconds to prepare an answer. Joel's face became still. He asked Leandro what he meant by 5 seconds. Leandro looked at me. Alcohol had made secrecy feel less important than winning. He said some men needed time because the first answer was never good enough. Tara told him to stop. I said everyone was tired and the joke had landed badly. That should have closed it. Leandro lifted his glass toward Joel. Then he used the sentence. "Count to 5, Joel. Maybe a better man will answer." No one moved. Joel turned toward me. He did not ask how Leandro knew. The question was already between us. I said I had never given him permission to use that. Leandro answered that I had sent it to him myself. He reminded me of the 11-minute voice note after the promotion. He said I had called Joel a frightened boy wearing an engineer's jacket and told him the birthday might finally show whether my husband had a spine. I told him he was drunk and combining different conversations. He agreed that he was drunk. Then he said the work topic had been my suggestion because I knew it was the only way to make Joel react. Miriam asked whether I had truly sent the sentence from their father. Her voice was low, but the family connection made the question heavier than Leandro's performance. I said the voice note had been private venting after a difficult night. Leandro had no permission to bring it into the house or use it against Joel. Kellen asked whether I had also suggested the promotion. The answer needed context. I explained that Leandro kept asking why Joel disliked him and that I had described the subjects Joel avoided. I said giving someone background was different from directing an attack. Leandro laughed into his glass. He repeated the message I had sent 3 nights earlier. Perhaps it was time to see whether he could rescue himself. I recognized every word. Rosa asked what I had expected Leandro to do with that invitation. I said I expected jokes, not cruelty. The distinction still mattered to me, although the people around the wall had stopped helping me hold it. Joel listened without correcting anyone. His silence no longer looked empty. It looked like the final space in a form that only I could complete. The camera was still aimed toward us when Tara's thumb pressed the shutter without her looking. A blank sheet of film pushed slowly from the front. Joel asked for a single answer. Did I want Leandro to stop? Simple. Private in meaning, public in delivery. I looked at Leandro, then at the people watching. If I ordered him out, I would admit Joel had been right about the friendship. I would also turn my 40th birthday into the night my jealous husband made me reject the person who first gave me a place in the group. So I told Joel not to use one drunken sentence to control my friendships. Tara said this was no longer a friendship problem. It was bullying. I accused her of switching sides because the room had become uncomfortable. Tara put the instant camera on the mantel. She said she had helped invite Leandro because she wanted the old group to stay whole, not because she wanted one man torn apart for entertainment. Then she took her coat and left. Her empty place near the photo wall looked smaller than it should have. Leandro said Tara had always been dramatic. I agreed because agreement kept at least one person beside me. Joel stepped back once more. This time, he did not stop at half a pace. He moved until the backs of his legs touched the empty chair by the wall. Then he went quiet. I believed the room had settled the question. Joel had been given jokes, honesty, and one difficult sentence. He had answered all of it by retreating. My birthday had become messy, but the mess still proved what I had said about him for years. Leandro raised his glass. I smiled for the people who remained. Joel finally spoke. He did not raise his voice. The room made space because nobody needed to be told that the waiting had ended. First, he looked at Leandro. Then he looked back at me and said, "He is a drunk man who likes feeling powerful beside another man's wife. But he never promised to respect me. You did." Leandro began to answer. Joel asked him to stay quiet for 1 minute. The request was so controlled that Leandro obeyed. Joel said he had spent years treating silence as patience. Sometimes it had been cowardice. He admitted that. Each time my friends crossed a line, he waited for a private conversation because public conflict reminded him of his father. Each private conversation ended with me calling him insecure. At Tara's barbecue, he had taken one step back and waited for me to protect the parking garage story. I explained it away. On the porch, he had stepped back and asked me to draw one boundary. I protected the party. Beside the cake, he had stepped back and told me why he no longer spoke around my friends. I supplied Leandro with another joke. After his father's sentence entered the room, he gave me the choice without hiding it inside silence. I still chose the man holding the bourbon. Joel rested one hand on the empty chair. His wedding ring remained where it was. He did not need an object to make the decision look real. Then he said, "Tonight I needed one answer." When he tried to humiliate me, "Would you stand beside me or beside him?" Now I have it. The Navy travel bag was already in his car. He said he had reserved a room near his sister's house for 1 week. The birthday was not a trap. He had simply refused to return home with me if I turned his private pain into the evening's entertainment. I told him leaving proved he had never intended to fight for us. He answered that marriage should not require fighting a wife's former lover for the wife's respect. Miriam, his sister, followed him first. Kellen and Rosa went after her. 2 more guests carried their coats out without saying goodbye. Leandro watched the door close and placed his glass on the mantel beside the instant camera. His heroic posture disappeared as soon as Joel was no longer available to stand beneath it. I asked him to tell the remaining guests that I had never planned a humiliation. He said I had supplied every story. He had only been drunk enough to repeat them. I reminded him that he had chosen the jokes and ignored Tara. He said it was my marriage, not his. Then he claimed I had invited him because I wanted Joel challenged and now needed someone else to carry the result. 3 defenses. No apology. When I asked if he would stay, he put on the cream-colored coat. He said he wanted no part in a separation and left before the caterer returned for the trays. The party ended without anyone declaring it over. Music continued at low volume. Ice melted beside unopened bottles. The 4 candles leaned into the frosting while the people still inside searched for practical reasons to leave. The blank instant photograph remained face down on the mantel. Joel filed a dissolution petition the following Tuesday, and the first mediation letter arrived 9 days later. The house was sold before spring, and I moved into a 2-bedroom rental where the walls could not hold the old photo wire. My share of the equity survived, but legal fees and 2 moves consumed the savings meant for a 40th birthday trip. Tara never returned to the old group chat, while Kellen and Rosa continued inviting Joel to dinners that no longer included me. Leandro called the evening a drunken setup, returned the restored camera through a courier, and blocked me when I asked him to correct the story. 2 co-workers who attended never shared the party pictures, and people at the magazine stopped asking me to curate the annual retreat wall. For years, I treated Joel's silence as proof that he was weaker than Leandro. Joel spoke for less than a minute that night. Leandro spent the rest of it explaining why none of his choices belonged to him. Weeks later, I unpacked the last box from the lake house and found Tara's final sheet of film beneath the photo wall clips. The image had finished developing in darkness. The last photograph from my 40th birthday showed Leandro raising his glass, Joel 1 half step from leaving the frame, and me laughing as if the space between them belonged to me.